here we are again. This is Coming to England and we're on chapter 7 and it's called The Last Goodbye. Out of the blue, actually it was 15 months after Mummy had left, we got a letter telling us she'd made arrangements for all 4 of us to join her in England. It was during the August school holidays and Sandra and I hugged and danced for joy. Our prayers had been answered. We were on our way to being one big happy family again. The time leading up to our departure was a hive of activity. We had 2 weeks in which to pack and say goodbye to absolutely everybody. Auntie and Uncle started being really nice to us. I suppose they wanted us to tell our parents how good they'd been to us. This wasn't true, of course, but I forgave them. I'd forgive anyone anything because I was so happy. I couldn't sleep at night. I was too restless with excitement. At that moment in time, I had no sad thoughts about leaving my country behind, even though I might not see it again for a very long time. Nothing occupied my mind and thoughts except being part of a family again. And finally, the day for our journey across the ocean came. My mother had asked her sister Olive to buy the tickets for all 4 of us. Auntie Olive lived in Port of Spain, which was where we had to board the ship for England. We spent our final night with her before being packed into her car for the drive through the busy evening traffic to the port. I'd been there before to wave goodbye to Dardy when he left the country. But now it was my turn to leave these tropical shores for the first time ever in my life. I was just about to begin a journey of a lifetime which would take 15 days across 4,000 miles of ocean. The excitement of the port gave me a tingle inside. I felt butterflies in my tummy. I could see the ship far out into the water. It couldn't come right up into the side of the wharf because the water wasn't deep enough, so everyone had to be transported to the ship in small motorboats. There was so much noise, it was deafening. Everyone was pushing and shoving, people were shouting, making sure their trunks and suitcases were safe as the boats ferried forwards and backwards. I felt bewildered, lost amongst the other passengers with those who'd come to bid them farewell. Many were hugging and crying as they said goodbye. Prayers were being said for a safe passage. And suddenly I started to cry too. I felt scared, but of what I wasn't really sure. Perhaps it was because I now realised what was about to happen. I was leaving my homeland, the land where I'd experienced great happiness with my family. And maybe it was because I was frightened of going into the small boat as it bobbed on the dark, oily water which crazily reflected the harsh harbour lights like a liquid mirror and separated us from the waiting ship that seemed to be calling me to her. Maybe I was just scared of facing the unknown. I still don't really know. Eventually, I managed to get onto the boat after being coaxed along with Lester, Ellington and Sandra. We all held on to each other tightly and just about managed to wave to Auntie Olive before the roar of the engine drowned out our goodbyes. She looked smaller and smaller as the boat left the quayside and neared the enormous ship. I became even more anxious as I realised we were on our own. 4 young children without anyone to reassure, comfort and protect us. My thoughts were interrupted as the boat bumped against the side of the ship, alerting to me another challenge that loomed in the shape of a shaky rope ladder on the side of the ship, which we had to climb. I really thought I was going to fall into the deep, dark water. My heart thumped and my knees went weak, but encouraged by the sailors, I made my way up the ladder. At last I reached the waiting hands of the sailors who hoisted me onto the deck. I'd made it. Everyone was on board and I heard the loud clanking sound of the anchor being winched up. A thundering noise bellowed out of the huge ship's funnel and we started to move, slipping gently and quietly into the darkness. I'd never been out of the country before, but as I stood on the deck of the ship that was about to take me out on the longest journey of my life, I smiled. This was the beginning of my great adventure, my new life. I turned and looked back at the port lights twinkling in the distance. I looked for the last time at Trinidad and said a silent goodbye.